G'day from Australia. I'd like to start by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land from which I'm broadcasting. I'd also like to pay my respects to elders past and present. My name is Ashley Davis. Welcome to my coding live stream. I'm continuing the development of my Kanban board extension for Visual Studio Code. In the last session, I finished some refactoring of the project, and today I'm going to engage in some defensive testing. What that means is I'm going to actively try and attack my code and break it. Through this process, I'm going to find out the flaws in my code, and I'm going to update it so that it can handle errors gracefully. This is going to be a lot of fun. I always like breaking my code to find out the ways that it's fragile, the ways that I can improve it. As I'm working, I'm going to do my best to explain what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. Please feel free to reach out to me on Twitter. My Twitter handle is AshleyDavis75. Now, this project, you can get it on GitHub. This is my GitHub, Ashley Davis, Taskboard VS Code extension. If you look here, you'll find some instructions on how to get started with this repository, how to get it up and running for yourself. Please feel free to grab the code from here. You can clone it directly from here. You can download a zip file and unpack it. You can fork it. You could be the first person to fork this and start contributing to it. You know, please join me in this adventure. If you want to catch up on previous live streams, we've come a long way to this point. You can find them on my YouTube channel, The Data Wrangler. Just search for The Data Wrangler on YouTube. I've got a ton of videos you can watch. If you look at all of them, I've been doing this for a while. There's quite a few there. But if you go to playlists and you click on the coding live stream taskboard, whoops, let's go back.
G'day from Australia. I'd just like to start by...
Why does it always click through like that? Anyway, so this is what I want actually here. View full playlist. So you can see all the episodes of this live stream from the beginning. So Taskboard 1 all the way to Taskboard 12. We're up to episode 13 today. Can you believe it? And we're very close to finishing this project actually. We're very close to publishing this Visual Studio Code extension on the Visual Studio Code marketplace. I've got a little bit more testing to do. We're going to do some of that today, and I've also got some features that I still have to implement that aren't there. So there's a little bit of work to be done, but we're very close to publishing this. Okay, as always, when I'm starting a session, I just like to kind of run my tests to make sure that they're still working. As you can see, I've already done that, but you know, just so you can see what I do to prep, I run npm test, which runs Jest. So this is running the Jest testing framework for JavaScript, and it's running the actually I'm using TypeScript, but same diff. So you can see that all my tests that I've done in the past are still passing. I just want to set the scene and make sure that the project I'm starting to work on when I come back into it for a session is still working. And I'm going to give you a quick demo of where we're at with this. So I start Visual Studio Code from this directory. Whoop, it's just come up off screen. Let me bring it back on screen. Zoom in a bit. Okay, so what I'm just going to do is I'm going to run the project directly from Visual Studio. I've got it set up to do that. I can hit F5 and it's going to run it. What it's going to do now is it's actually going to build the web view and it's going to build the TypeScript code for the extension. You can see what's happening in the terminal window here. This takes a moment or two. I'd really like to improve the speed of this, but because I don't work on this day to day, I kind of only work on this once a week. I haven't had the time to invest to kind of improve the speed of this. What I'd actually like to do is to take this Webpack build out of it and have that be a separate thing, so that building the extension, it could potentially reuse like a cached version of the web view. While that's starting up, it's taking its time. I might just make sure I'm on full power here. Oh, I'm not. I wasn't on best performance. That might help. So let's have a look at the tests that we've got already here while I'm waiting for that. So I've got a bunch of tests. The code for these is all collapsed. That makes it a little bit easier to read. These are all effectively unit tests. They're testing isolated functions, isolated from other dependencies. They're very fast to run. That's what I was just showing you that I was running a moment ago in Jest. I'm going to be adding some more tests to this today. I'm actually going to make a new file, so I'm not going to add the new tests to the existing file here. I'm going to make a new file, and that's where I'm going to start putting some integration tests. So integration tests are different to unit tests in that they're testing a larger body of code, normally like a couple of different code modules integrated together. Whereas unit tests, you're only just testing one code module. Okay, cool. We've actually started this. So from the extensions project in Visual Studio Code, I hit F5. That basically ran the extension. So it runs a new copy of Visual Studio Code. You can see up the top here it says Extension Development Host. And so it runs a new instance of Visual Studio Code. It runs the extension in that. So I've got the extension running, but I've got to open the Kanban board. So I do that from the command palette there. And I get my Kanban board. I'm just going to put it off to the side. Oh yeah, I've got to select. So when I select a Markdown file, it shows up. So I've rendered this Markdown file on the side, on the left here, which is a to-do list. On the right, it's rendered as a Kanban board in Visual Studio Code. There's a bunch of stuff done here, like you can edit the lane names. I don't think you can edit the cards yet. You can't move these around. Like you can actually move these around like that, but it doesn't actually update the Markdown file yet. You can add a new lane, and you can add a new card. So that's about all you can do at the moment. So there's more features to be implemented, things that aren't there yet. That's coming soon. What I want to do today, though, is I want to write some more tests against the function that I've written that converts from Markdown to the Kanban board format. I want to write some more tests against that to see what it can handle, to see what edge cases it can handle. For example, would it be able to handle, if I just deleted everything here and just had the 3 hashes, would it be able to handle that? I don't know. That's what I'm going to find out today. Things like that. So I'm back in the extension project here. What I'm going to do first up is I'm going to make a new test suite. So under my test folder here, I'm going to create a new file. I'll call it integration test.ts for want of a better name. This is going to be the integration test for the converter. And I'll start it just like I started this. I mean, there's some auxiliary stuff up the top there, but essentially it starts with this describe that wraps a test suite, and then you have this it function that wraps each test. So I'll say describe integration tests. Again, I might be able to think of a better name for this later if it comes down to it. I don't think so. I think it's going to be fairly general. Let's just test that I can make a failing test. I just want to make sure. So a failing test, that'll do. Let's expect that true to be false. That's going to fail because true is definitely not false, right? I'm gonna run this now in watch mode, which is my convention is npm run test watch. So that runs Jest with the watch flag. You can just see it just there, the watch flag on Jest. That means that whenever any files in the file system change, it's going to re-execute or basically the files that have changed. Oh, it says it was interrupted. Let's try that again. So I should have one failing test. Yep. Yep. Cool. So my integration test, a failing test or a fail test. It tells me why it's failed. So really good just to be able to trigger a test failure first up, just to make sure that you can fail a test. Because if there's no way of reporting a failing test, well, you've got no way of, I mean, this whole way of working is defunct. Like, you need to be able to see that a test can fail. Now, I'm going to make a passing test, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to make an integration test for something that I know works. That'll be then my basis for breaking my code. What I'll do then is I'll make that working test. I'll duplicate that, and then I'll delete random parts of it, and I'll try and make it fail. And I'm sure my code isn't bulletproof. I have put zero effort into making this code bulletproof at this point in time. I'm really just starting that now, and so I expect to be able to make my code fail fairly easily. But let's see. I could surprise myself. You never know. Okay. So I don't know what to call this test yet. Let's just call it an integration test. I mean, it's just a starting point. I don't know what to call it. Naming things is like the hardest problem in computer science. Oh, that apparently and caching. So I think I want to take something from here, like one of my unit tests. This would be good, something with a task. I do actually have an example to-do list here in this project. I'm just going to take a subsection of this. Actually, I'm going to take a subsection of this, and I'm going to make an integration test out of that. I think if I say this is going to be called test markdown. So this is the markdown that I want to basically deserialize. This is going to be a bit ugly, but I think I can do can I do a multiline yeah, so that's like a multiline JavaScript string. I think that's going to work. I'd like to indent it, but I'm not sure if I can do that and still have it be okay. In fact, let's start that on a line of its own, just to make sure that there's no issues with any indenting or anything like that within the string. And I'll play with that in a minute and see if I can tidy that up. Now, what I want to do is I want to use because this is an integration test, I actually want to deserialize this to an abstract syntax tree. Now, you remember in my previous unit tests, I was essentially starting with the abstract syntax tree. I was synthesizing it. But these tests are going to be kind of more realistic than that. I'm actually going to be testing the Markdown serialization. And for that, I can just copy the code from the main extension file here, where I'm bringing in all my... I just need unified, and I need the Markdown there. So if I put those imports at the top, and I copy this from Markdown processor, I'll copy that over. So now I've got a way to basically, if I remember how to do this, otherwise I'll look at the previous code I wrote. From Markdown process parse, so the parse function, I think. I was taking a file. No, this is parse text, but I'm going to go and look at how this is used in my previous code. I can't. I could mess about with this. Obviously, I could stuff about with it and try and figure it out. It is what I thought anyway. It's the parse function. You pass in the Markdown, and what you get back is an abstract syntax. I'm going to just take this whole bit of code here. That's fine, and it'll save me typing a few keystrokes. But I've got to make sure I'm passing in the right input, the test Markdown. What I'm going to do at this point is I'm just going to check that this is working. I never go very far in coding without testing my work, even if I haven't finished a test. I haven't even finished writing this test yet, but I'm still going to test it. I'm going to test it just by console logging the output, just to make sure that this first line of code that I've written works. Now I should see that coming up over here, and yep, that looks good. That looks like it's a valid Markdown abstract syntax tree coming out in the output of my tests. So, I honestly, you might think it's too much that I write a line of code and I test it, and a lot of times I don't do that as well. A lot of times I'll write 10 lines of code, but at the end of the day, if you write 10 lines of code and those 10 lines of code are hiding a bug or they're broken, you've got to be able to test line by line. You've got to be able to break that code down and understand like what's happening in each part of it. Now I'm sort of back to what I was doing in the original tests here, where I'm going to call my function. I've got the AST, so I can call this function now on the AST. I'm passing in the, well, it's not that anymore, it's this one here, Markdown AST. This function isn't imported, but I've got my quick fix here, which is also hotkey control dot, and I can import that. So you can see that has automatically up here at the top of this file added that import. Gotta love Visual Studio Code and how it can do stuff like that. I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to console log out this board. So this is the Markdown that's been converted to the Kanban board data. I'm just saving that, switching back to my tests. My tests are on watch mode, so they're running automatically. And in a moment, I should see the logging from that new test. Oh, by the way, one thing I can do here, if I want to make my tests run more quickly, is I could just delete this file temporarily. Of course, I'd delete this the unit testing file. And that way, I'd only be focusing on this one test here. I don't see any point in doing that at the moment. It's running fairly quickly, but if of course that would only be a temporary measure to cut down on the amount of tests that I'm currently dealing with, and I would revert that through version control later. So just a little tip there if you need to cut down on the amount of tests that you're dealing with. Okay, so this is the board data that's been printed out. That looks pretty good. I mean, it's not full. I could stringify that to JSON if I wanted to see all the kind of nested details of, all the subfields and stuff here, but I don't need to see that. I just need to see that it looks like a valid board, and it does, so that's all good. Actually, what I want to do here is I want to show you a nice little testing trick. If you're testing after the fact, and now I haven't done that. I've done test-driven development for this function here. So this Markdown AST to board data. I've done test-driven development, TDD, for that. So I unit tested that as I was going in the proper way of doing that. But if you didn't do that, if I'd like just sort of coded that function up, and I was 100% happy that was working because I'd debugged it for a while and I'd fixed errors and I'd manually tested it or whatever. This could literally be my first test, and I'll show you. How I would do that. What I would do is I would print this board out. I would stringify it to JSON. So that's so that I get the full kind of data. Now I've saved that. It's going to rerun the tests. It's going to show me the full sort of JSONified version of this board data. You're gonna love this trick. Like I mean, I often do testing. Like sometimes I don't do TDD. Often it's not feasible to do TDD, right? So what you can do, actually there's a lot, this may not be a good idea in this case, because there is a lot of data here, right? In fact, what I'm going to do to make this a little bit easy for myself is I'm just going to run npm test. I'm going to pipe the output to test.log, so that I can go into this file test.log and get that output. So all this kind of JSON output here that I want to copy that into my test. Or do I? No, I don't actually want all of that. I really just want the board data, actually. So maybe I'm going about this the hard way. But I've got my test file anyway. So let's open that. Test.log. Oh, that wasn't what I was expecting. It didn't have anything. Oh, it's probably outputting the standard error. Okay. Let's nix that idea. That's a pain in the butt to redirect standard error. What I want to do here is I want to just get the board data out, the subfield. Yeah, that's sort of mainly what I want to test here. I don't want to kind of test that the AST is in the right format. That means I'm gonna run this test again, and it's going to log out the kind of nested board data field. That's just a subset of the data, but that's actually the data that I'm really interested in testing here. I don't care about the other stuff or the auxiliary stuff that happens to be there. So you can see that this is a lot smaller. Okay, cool. So I don't have to redirect this to the file to copy it. I can literally just copy it from the terminal here. And this is the bit you're going to love. This is the bit you're going to think it's going to seem like I'm cheating, right? I'm going to expect the board to equal that. So I've literally just copied JSON data in there. This should give me a passing test. Oh, I've got to remember to address this board data subfield. So it's not the whole board itself, it's just the board data, the converted board data. So if I run my test again, this time I've commented out that output, I've got an expectation there. There should be like a new passing test, but it's an integration test. So it's testing, that I can parse from Markdown to an AST, and that I can go from the AST, the abstract syntax tree, into board data. This isn't going to work. Can you see why? Because it's creating these GUIDs, and the GUIDs are going to be different. They're going to be unique every time. Okay, so my funny little cheat's not going to work. So if I could mock and dependency inject something that produces well-known GUIDs, I could get this to work. I could say it was like, I could mock it out so it's like ID1, ID2, so on, and like I can't really control that, or can I? Let's see. I don't know if I've got time to do this. I could control this. I'm actually producing these ideas. I'd forgotten. I'm producing these IDs. Sorry. Let's do a quick and cunning dependency injection. Make UID. And it's a function that returns a string. Now, what we could do here is just to make this really quick and suitable just for testing. I'm not sure that it's the most elegant code, but we could say if that function is valid, then we call it. Otherwise, we call the original function. And again, down here when we're making a card ID, we call that function if it's good. Otherwise, we call so this v4 function, if I hit F12, that comes from this node modules UID. So that's coming from the UID node modules. You can see at the top of this file where it's import v4 from UID. So I'm using what I'm doing here for the purpose of testing. Let's find that again. What I'm doing here for the purpose of testing is I'm dependency injecting this make UID function, right? And so I can override the UID creating function v4 with my own version for the test run. Now you can see I've made it optional. I've made it an optional parameter here, which means I don't have to pass it in anywhere else. It's optional. And I don't have to update that other code. So let's pass in a function here that returns just a hard-coded function. ABCD. That's my UID for everything. So now what I should be able to do is say ABCD for all these IDs. I didn't think I was going to be able to pull this off for a second there, but I think this should hopefully give me a passing test, a passing integration test at that. Cool, so I've got my new test is passing. I've now got 25 passing tests. I'm going to go back to watch mode here. So that's just my setup, right? Let me clean this up a bit. Get rid of that console logging. I can fold this data down if I don't want to see it. I could fold this string down. I actually want to see what I can do with this string. I want to see if I can get the same result by fiddling with this string. Just because really I'm not that experienced with multi-line JavaScript strings, and I can't remember exactly like what's going to happen if I get that lined up, get that indented the way I want. Well, what's happened here? Did I mess something up here? Oh, I must have accidentally added a space there because I just triggered a failing test. Anyway, I just want to see that test passes again, because when it does, I'll fiddle with that multi-line JavaScript string. Cool, all passing. let's just see if I can indent this whole thing and still have it survive. That'll just tidy up the code a little bit. If you're watching this and you already know how multi-line strings work, you might have an answer to my question. Yeah, so it's messed up something. I'm not going to worry about that. I would like to know why and whether I can get that indented, but I'm going to save that for another time because I really want to get on with the main purpose of this, which is to break my code. Actually, I'm going to just commit this first go, so let's just make sure that's still passing. Any moment now. Yep, all good. So I'm just going to get out of that, and I'm just going to commit from the command line here. Let's do a git diff to make sure in what I've changed. That's all good. So this is in the converter TS function where I've added the make UID parameter. That should be fairly safe. That looks okay. And then I've removed some comments. That was from between live streams. I removed some comments from the test file of tests that I want to make. I've actually moved some of those to my to-do list. So it looks good. And the file integration test is completely new. And test log. Oh, I've got to delete that. I don't want to accidentally commit that. So I'll just get rid of that test log. Okay, so let's commit or stage everything. Commit it. Added a first integration test. I'll push that up to the repo. So if you want to go and have a look at the repo, that change will be there, ready for you to play with. Now, so to try and break my code, let's copy this. And let's call it, for want of a better name, let's call it Bad Markdown 1, because hopefully I'll come up with a few of these. Now, what happens if it's just that? Surely that's going to work. Oh, I better start my tests again in watch mode. So I've just created a new test. The expectations there. It's definitely not going to be the same, so that test is definitely going to fail. So that's not really what I want to do. What I want to do is just look at the output. So calling JSON stringify again to convert the board data to some JSON. Make sure it's printed out nicely so I can read it. All this expectation here is commented out because I don't know what that's going to be yet. Now let's see what we get. Like, I'm kind of expecting that this might throw an exception, like something like this. I'm trying to get this function to crash, basically. I'm sure I can do it. I'm sure there's edge cases in this function that I haven't catered for and problems, and that's why I'm doing this. That's why I'm prodding it in various ways to see how it fails. Yep, it's failed. Cannot read property children of undefined. So this is my first. Just to double check though, I'm just going to go back a little bit here. In fact, I won't go back. That's too much there that I want to keep. I want to see if this works just with one task. Let's just make sure that works with one task, right? So this should be. I think this should be a passing test. I think, like, what's the difference between one task and 3 tasks in my to-do list? Nothing, right? So that's good. That's not crashing, and you can see that the board data here that's printed out looks okay. So, but removing that task breaks it. I'm going to do one more thing here. Before that, I'm going to try just deleting that. I'm going to try putting that with no space, and I'll see if that causes any problem. I expect this test will still pass. I don't see any difference having that kind of that empty line there. Any particular issue with that? Oh, cool! I've actually looked up at my chat for a change, and I've got some questions from Bruno Wink. With a tag function to remove the indentation, it works. Tabs will create a. Oh, this is about the indented multi-line JavaScript string. Maybe we can catch up on Twitter. Let's catch up on Twitter because maybe you can help me understand how I can get that working. Anyway, so I've got a passing test here. So that was all right. That didn't cause a problem. But removing that, just having like the name of a lane by itself is going to be a problem. So this is going to cause a failing test. And I just want to see if I can, just so I can tidy up this code a bit, I just want to see if I can cause the same problem just having that on the one line. Yep, same problem. So that's not what, down here is what I want. Bad Markdown 1. So now the question is how do I fix this? So cannot read property children of undefined. That is the problem. It's accessing something that's undefined. On this line here, children is undefined. Markdown AST is undefined. That doesn't seem right. Oh no, sorry, it's the next line down, this for loop here. That's what it's actually pointing to. So it can't find the list node. So the list is missing. So I've got to put something in there that can cater for this list being missing, right? I'm going to do that in the converter function. I'm just going to find the line it was on. So line 258 is where it said the problem was. And it's got the arrow here. So you can see the arrow down here. That's saying where the problem is there. So this is effectively what I'm looking for in my code on line 258. I'm almost at line 258, but if you're not, if you're somewhere else in this file, here's a hot tip for Visual Studio Code. Hit Control-G and type in the line number you want to go to, 258, and then you're there, you're on that line. And I can scan across that line and see this is what I'm looking for. This list node does not exist. And I think, now, why is that? Is it because there's not enough children? So essentially I've got here, right? I've got to this first child and there is a heading and it is depth 3. So we're getting into this if statement here. But the problem is down here is we're looking at this next one and there isn't one. I think that's the problem. I think the problem is that there isn't one. So let's say up here that there's an extra condition. It's almost like I want to indent this all in a new if statement. Let's do that, and then I'll tidy that up. So if the child index +1 is less than the length of all the children, I'm actually, to simplify this code a bit, I'm going to copy the children out to a separate variable. So now instead of using this markdown ast.children, you can see everywhere it's highlighted here. I can simplify that code a little bit and replace that. Was that it? I think that's it. So if the next child is less than the total amount of children, is what I'm saying here, I'm going to do this extra code. My thought is that this is going to basically fix this problem. And if it's not, it's going to be breaking out in the next loop anyway. So let's see if that gets my test passing. So there is a bunch of failures here. Why is that? Some of the other tests are failing. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to take them out of the equation for the moment, right? I just want to focus on this one test, and then I'll come back and I'll fix those later. So I'm going to delete the original test file. Now I can recover that through version control, so I don't think I've lost that code. That code still exists in version control. And I'm going to try just running without that. There could be a problem here with jest caching. Oh no, it's fine. It's good. So one test failed. What is the problem? I'm just going to get rid of this expectation for the moment, just to get it out of the way. The original test is failing, so I'm just going to focus on the bad Markdown test that I'm trying to work on at the moment. Let's go back into watch mode. I think you can see here that my bad Markdown test is actually passing. It's saying 1 passed. So what that means is that the previous test I made is failing. I've broken that somehow by fixing this new test. I've broken a lot of other tests by the look of it. That this is part of the process. It's part of the process. So I've skipped one. I've one passed. So whatever I did here fixed. It fixed the problem, right? But it created a new problem. So let's bring this. Let's take out this it only. So we're back to running 2 tests. We're running the integration test and the bad Markdown test. Why is this failing now? I didn't expect that. I didn't expect that I would break that, but these things happen. Let's see if I can work out why. So it's returning nothing now. Like let's just scrutinize this code again. So if there isn't a next child index, oh no, sorry. If there isn't one, do that. I've got it the wrong way around. Oh, or do I? No, that's fine. That should be fine. Let's make this a bit clearer. Const next child index equals child index plus 1. Now I'm just using naming here to try and make this a bit clearer to see if I can spot the problem. So if the next child index is less than the total amount of children, that means I've got the 2 kind of children here that I need to make up this lane in the Kanban board. I can rename that as next child index and then delete that. So that's coming from the next child index. I've got the plus 1 down here that accounts for the list. I've got the plus 1 here that accounts for the current one that you're visiting. Why is this an issue? I'm gonna put some prints here, and in fact let's make this the only one. So I'm focusing now on the broken test and what I need to do to fix it. Let's just going to print out a couple of things here just to see what I'm dealing with here, just to see what I'm looking at. I'll just put a little kind of marker here so it's obvious that that's what I'm looking at. So I've only got the one test here, the first integration test that I did. I broke it somehow. I'm trying to figure out why. I've just put in some logging just to try and see where I'm at. Where's my logging going? The other thing I want to have here actually is the length of the children. I'm just going to run this manually just for the moment, just so I can clearly delineate what, the output from one test run to another. Because sometimes they just sort of seem to blend in together, and it's hard to kind of understand what whether you're running it, looking at the current test run, or you've scrolled back to the previous one. Well, that's a bit confusing. I can't see my logging, so I'm not sure what's going on here. Let's just add some logging here to see if I can get it to come up. Just something interesting to see if I can get get that to happen. Oh, that comes up. And if it's, of course, it's not actually getting down to here, is it? It should be though. I'm just putting liberally dispersing a few logs through here, just because I just want to see just how far into the code it gets. It's obviously not getting to where I thought it was going to get to. What did I do there? Oh, I put a bad character in. Let's get rid of that and start again. So just trying to work out where in my code it's getting to, because I mean I expect it to get down to here, but it doesn't seem to be. I mean I would expect that maybe it would fail to get to here, and that's what the problem is. But it's just not. It's not even getting to there. Is it getting to here? I'm running out of special characters. Often when I'm doing this kind of thing, I'll use like AAA, BBB, CCC, DDD as like kind of special kind of in order characters that I can use to kind of check just where in code that it's getting to. Alternately, I could use the debugger for this. Visual Studio Code debugger is really good. I just haven't endeavored to kind of set it up for running tests in this project. You can see it's getting to there. Did anyone see this? Did anyone spot this? I'm not copying out the children, I'm copying out the length. Hey, what a dumbass I am today. Okay, so this should get me back to where I'm expecting it to be, and that was probably just what the problem was. Sometimes we just need to read our code. That's all it boils down to. Yep, that's passing. So let's just remove these console logs here that I don't need anymore. Hopefully not accidentally break anything else. Actually, I get what I asked for, right? I'm trying to break my code. Well, guess what? I succeeded. I guess that's a win. There's a log there I'm going to get rid of. I'm going to get rid of this it.only. I should have 2 passing tests now. Let's check that. In the meantime, I'm going to open up source tree, and I'm going to use source tree to revert that file or that other test file that I deleted. Cool. Anyway, I've got passing tests there. There's still a console log there. That's okay. Source tree open yet? Come on, source tree, where are you? Oh, here we go. Wrong project, wrong project. Where's my working for project? I think I'm having a connectivity issue. Oh, yep, the internet's out. Great. Okay, I'll push on while the internet figures out what it's doing. So I'm just going to restore this file that I deleted because I want to get that back into place. So I'm just discarding that change. I'll run my tests now. I'm expecting to get like, 24, 25, 26, something like that, passing tests. No failing tests, and then I might have just enough time to do one more test. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just to finish off that test, I need to put an expectation in here. I'm just going to copy this as a template. I'll just copy that off to a separate file, and I'll use that again in a moment. For now, I'm just going to put an expectation in here that will be basically this. Basically, what I'm looking for here is empty lanes. So it's like it's bad Markdown, but it produces a valid but empty board. Does it sound fair enough? So empty lanes. So I've got an expectation in there now of a passing test. And that was coded up, that was coded up in the TDD style, in that the first thing I did was basically I made a broken test. And then I changed code, or I wrote code to fix that broken test. Oh, one thing I want to do actually before, so I've got all my passing tests. I'll go back into watch mode here because I just want to make a little bit of a cleanup. So when you're doing test-driven development, what you do is you kind of, you get it together as quickly as you can, but then you can go back and you can kind of clean the code up. So actually, you know what? I think I'll just leave it the way it is. I was going to actually merge that if statement there into that if statement there, and get rid of this sort of multi-level nesting, but I can't because I've already kind of put my next child index variable there. So it's debatable whether that would improve the code anyway, merging these two if statements into one code line. In fact, it could even make the code less readable. So just forget I said that. Let's move on. I'm going to commit this. I'll commit this in source tree this time rather than committing it from the command line. I can do a quick look here to see what's changed. That's a little bit confusing to see what's changed there, but essentially it's just the addition of this if statement here that basically stops us getting into this kind of next block of code when the Markdown isn't the way we expect it to be. And then we've also, in my integration tests, we've got this new bad Markdown integration test. So added first, this is actually the second integration test. So say added integration test for bad Markdown. And I'll commit that. I'll push it up. So if you're watching this, that commit is going up to the repository straight away. Well, something's gone wrong with my internet, so I'm still recording this and I'm going to put it on YouTube, but the live streaming has failed, unfortunately, and I can't push. But all right, let's just move on. Let's go into test watch mode, and let's try and break this again. So I'm going to take this test that I copied before. Let's call it bad Markdown 2. How am I going to try and break it this time? I'll copy this test Markdown again. In fact, what if it's just an empty string? Can this code just handle an empty string? And it should be able to, right? You should be able to have a Markdown file that contains nothing. So that's perfectly valid. And it passes. So I'm going to say that it handles it. And I think the reason I can explain why it handles it, and it's really just because I have accounted for it from the start. If we look at converter.ts here, it's basically iterating. It's iterating through the children. So if there are no children, so child index starts at 0. And it continues to iterate through children while that's less than the number of children. Basically what it means is it's not going to get into this if statement. It's not going to get into the body of this if statement at all if there are no children in the Markdown abstract syntax tree. So what it's going to do is going to create a default board, and effectively it's going to return it. So that's the reason why that works. Pretty happy that works. There's lots of other ways I can break this code, of course. Code breaks all the time. People use it in different ways. Customers use it in different ways, and it breaks. What I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to preempt that. I'm trying to prod the code in various ways and force it to break, so I can understand what's going to go wrong with it and how I can preemptively fix that. So that's going to make this code so much more robust, so much more resilient. I call it defensive testing because it's sort of, for me, it's a bit like defensive coding, where you're assuming that the worst can happen, you're assuming that anything can go wrong, and anything that can go wrong will go wrong, kind of like Murphy's Law, and you're preemptively counteracting that. You're preemptively trying to make your code, gracefully handle these unexpected situations and crashes. Anyway, that's all I've got time for today. Like I said at the beginning, we're getting very close to publishing this Visual Studio Code extension on the Visual Studio Code Marketplace, where it'll be public for anyone to use and install through Visual Studio Code. That's really exciting that we're getting to this point. I don't know when that's going to be, but I'm going to take a break next week, so I won't be live streaming next week, but I will come back to it the week after, and we might be ready to go to market then. We might be ready to publish on the marketplace. We'll see. We'll see what's left to be done in the meantime. Otherwise, have a great 2 weeks, and I'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.